Three, two, one, and we're live. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made podcast. My name is Mavel Heimoli, and if this is your first time tuning in, please subscribe. And if you're returning, thank you again. We appreciate it. Also, please, if you want ways to help us out, please check us out at c4designs.com. There's some merch there in our store and that you can purchase. Also use code VMP15 to get 15% off. And let's just get into this. Today is an exciting episode for me, growing up. So your daughter is, like I mentioned before, your daughter's my classmate. Mm-hmm. And so just knowing that name, Brother Norm. And so, I guess today is just to, talk story and just to get to know who you are. Whether it's, being considered as the musical person or if it's the father, you know what I mean? Or just, outside of music. And so thank you again for, coming out all the way out this way. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just get into this. Can you talk about your name? Who named you? The meaning of all your names? And then just your last names, I guess.
Okay. So I am Norman for Ali'i Thompson Jr. My dad is senior, obviously. My mom named me after my dad because she wanted Junior. She wanted her sons to be named with the letter N and my sisters with the letters T. So I have three sisters, Tammy, Tracy, and Trudy, and Tylo is my youngest sister. And then myself, Norman, and Neil. Fuali'i comes from my great-great-grandfather. His name was Mataese Fuali'i Sua. And so there's a crazy story that goes along. So our last name actually is supposed to be Sua.
Okay.
But my grandfather was going into the military at the time. And so Mele Mary Andrews, I believe, was my great-great-grandmother. Mele Mary Andrews Thompson was her name. And she told her son that he would get further in genealogy and further in the military if he took an English name. So back then, I guess the military would take, the federal government would take, and process English names first.
Right.
And then go back and process the foreign names. And so he ended up taking his mom's maiden name, which was Thompson. And so... yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, when they first ask, like my wife, when I first met my wife, she was like, so what's your name, And I said, Norm. And she's like, what's your last name? And I was like, you ready? Because it's got like 11 vowels. She's like, wow, you Polynesians. Okay. So I was like, ready? Thompson. And she was just like, that name is whiter than white, like Norm Thompson. Like, really? Like... But that's how I got the name Thompson. And like with genealogy, at the touch of our fingertips right now, it's like you cannot even go too far back. Like it's so easy to see where you've come from, and to see all the people that have come before you, family members that have come before you, and that have sacrificed so much, to bring you to where I am, and then we as a generation bring our children further into evolution, and they bring their children further into evolution. And I often wonder, like all of my ancestors back from the beginning of time, like just standing there waiting to see with so much pride that, look, when my great-great-great-great-grandparents look at each other and they say, look, we came and we brought, like, look at our grandson today and what he's accomplished for our family, just the pride and the love and the gratitude they have for us. It's just amazing, to represent. And a lot of Polynesians, a lot rests in the name.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
You carry a name, and so there's pride in that name. Don't shame that name or whatever. But to me, I think you can never. It depends on how you see it, but you can't shame your name unless you do something super, like off the charts. But I think, I often think, man, our ancestors are just gleaming with pride and gratitude for where we are today.
Right. And just so basically, in doing this podcast, that's why I ask people what their names are, who named them, and the meaning of their names. Is because as Polynesians, just like you said, it's important to us, and that's the name that we carry. Yes. And so, do you know your family migration story with the Sua or Thompson, from Samoa to the islands?
I don't. I do not. So, Jolene is my cousin, Jolene Kanahele.
First of all, give a shout out to Jolene. Yes. She's the one that hooked us up, for me to talk to Norm. And so thank you, Auntie Jo.
Yes. She's amazing. We were, I don't know if you know this, but we were voted by our senior class in 1983. We were voted most talented in our senior class, which was amazing because like the way Jolene and I are related, we're related both ways. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So nobody knows we're related so close. But she would always, we grew up in music together and everything. And she always like challenged me and she would always be like, hey, sing this song or learn this song,
Right.
Which is crazy. But so her dad's side, I do know my Hawaiian side, my great grandmother, Kapua Ililani Halemanu. She was born in Tuala. Where is that? Iosepa.
Okay.
She was born in Iosepa. And after looking at a bunch of the history of Iosepa, like I actually went out there to see the place because I thought it was like a town, like a ghost town, because I don't think anybody lived there. So I actually drove out there. My wife and I drove out there to see the town. And when I got there, it's actually just a driveway. You pull up into the driveway and there's like a bunch of graves and there's like a monument and stuff. And then there's like a pavilion, like just a canopy where they do like, I guess they did like holalea, like shows or whatever to celebrate. But that's all it is, And I asked a few people like about the people, the Hawaiians that had migrated to Utah or to Iosepa. And my grandmother's one of them. And they said that when the first Hawaiians learned about the church and joined the church, they were encouraged to come here to do temple ordinances and go to the temple. So they would walk from Iosepa all the way into Salt Lake. They would spend the night out on the temple lawn and then go to the temple the next day. And like today, man, like the Salt Lake Temple from Iosepa is so far. I think, man, our people walked all that way, just to go because they had so much love for Christ and so much love for the gospel that they were willing to do that, And like a lot of the Polynesian stories, they loved the gospel so much and the promises that were promised them through covenants, they were willing to give everything. Like Vaisika Hema, his dad would sell a piece of their house at a time just to get his children, his family together to be able to be sealed together, Right. And so my great-grandmother, she was born there. And then when they built the Laie temple, all those Hawaiians had moved back home because they had their own temple now. So
right. Yeah. And so, man, that's... just everything that you're talking about is like just a rich legacy, right?
Yes.
The legacy of faith, from these pioneers that, your grandparents that moved from Hawaii to Iosepa and then from Iosepa back to Hawaii. Yeah. So from there, where were you born and raised?
I was born in San Pedro, California.
Oh, actually, interesting.
I was born in Torrance Hospital.
Yeah.
I was born there. And so I wrote this song. So a lot of people don't catch it. So I wrote this song called Hawaiian Born. It's one of the first songs I wrote. And the lyrics to that song is, I was raised on the east side, right? So I was born to be Hawaiian, but I was raised because I was sent home when I was a month old by, I don't know if you know Andrew Chase or the Kanahele's Uncle Gala.
Okay.
I was brought home by Uncle Gala, which is my grandmother's brother. He brought us home from LA to be raised by my grandmother. So I was raised by my grandmother until my parents had moved home from Torrance.
Right.
like 4 years later. My parents had to sell the home, get all their, affairs in order and everything before they moved home. And then we moved home to where my parents reside today. But yeah.
Got it. And well, that's interesting that you brought up, Hawaiian Born with that song. I have the lyrics here. So this basically describes growing up, right?
Yes.
So I'm just going to read some of the lyrics and then some of your favorite memories,
Okay.
you just go ahead and talk about it, or, the first
Okay.
thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
So let's go. We used to, I was raised on the east side by the Lua and the Thompson, Ainga, and Ohana.
Mm-hmm.
My papa said that we didn't need money to live. Mm-hmm. So what are your memories of not needing money to live?
So my grandfather, he was full of wisdom. His name was Makahiva Ne'ulani Ke Alakuhi Lima Lua. And I was raised by my grandfather. And his philosophy was, you don't need money to live. You need money to make yourself comfortable. And like all the Polynesians, we migrated from, our motherlands to, I would say like we all came from one land, and then a bunch of people sailed away, found a land, called it Tonga. A bunch of people sailed away, found land, called it Samoa, Hawaii, and so on and so forth. That's why the language is so close still, is because I think we all originated from one place, but because we're vast voyagers, we all sailed away, found place, inhabited a new place, and called it our own place, But deep down inside, I think we originate from one place. And so my grandfather used to tell us, you don't need money to live, so don't get it right. Don't get it wrong. You don't need money to live. You can live. I can show you how to survive from the ocean, which our people knew.
Right.
I can show you how to survive from the mountains, which our people knew. All of these things. The Polynesians were amazing people, and the more I delve into the type of people we were and how we sustained ourselves for hundreds and hundreds of years, generations and generations, like just what an amazing people. And so he used to tell me, you don't need money to live, just to be comfortable, and it's at your discretion at what level of comfort you want to live. Yeah.
Dang, that's cool. So it continues. My papa said that we didn't need money to live in a town called Laie. Mm-hmm. We used to laugh and play in Laie Bay and surf at Go Island.
Yes.
So what are some of the memories and some of your favorites of that?
So Laie Bay is better known as Hukilau. Okay. And everybody knows Hukilau because that's where they used to have the Hukilau. But Goat Island, we used to surf at Goat Island. That's where I learned how to surf. And then you graduate to the North Shore, where the bigger surf is. But Laie Bay is where, so my grandfather used to teach us we used to throw net, but he used to teach us to throw the net over a rock, and then all the fish that swim, that hide under the rock, you throw the net over the rock and shake the rock, and all the fish under it try to escape and hit the net, right? And so as little kids, we were successful, But my grandfather, he used to tell us, learn how to feed yourself from the ocean before you learn to play, So if you look at Polynesian culture, you can tell that a culture is thriving when you see artwork. When they have time to make games and artwork and stuff like that, paintings and fish hooks or whatever, then they know how to survive. Now they're thriving because they have all these different, arts and stuff. Because when you're just learning to feed yourself and make housing, you don't have time to make, decorations. You're still trying to survive. And so his lessons were to, hey, make sure you learn how to feed yourself before you learn how to play.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now I see all my childhood friends and they say that we're proud to be Hawaiian. So who are some of your childhood friends? And, are you still in contact with them today?
Yes, I am. Frank Kalama was number one childhood. He was my best friend growing up. People thought we were brothers.
Yeah. Because they lived right around the corner, the Kalamas.
Yeah. And so I never knew. I used to ask my dad, like, does Uncle Frankie have brothers? And my dad was like, yeah. And I was like, well, who's his brother? Because I never knew. I never saw any of his brothers around. And my dad was like, me. And I was like, oh, okay. But Frank Kalama, Moot Aquin, Erwin Au, just there's a whole bunch of like, I mean, all the Laie boys, of course,
Right.
you know, a bunch of the Hola boys, but all of us, Nato Toki, Kenji Coburn, Kirk Akina, we were Albert Unga, we were all like that little clique
your
of
crew.
surfing crew. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. And especially, you know, I was born and raised in Hawaii too, or in Laie and also in Koku, but you know, everybody says, I'm Tongan or I'm Samoan, but being born and raised in Laie, you have to say you're a little bit of everything, you know, because all your friends, all my friends are either Samoan, Fijian, Tongan, you know, and so it just we're integrated together, and it wasn't just like, I'm just a certain race, you know, I wasn't just Tongan or just Samoan. That's what I loved about growing up there too, you know.
And you know what too is I was just talking to Jolene the other night, because I told Jolene, cuz, did you know we were Tongan? And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, we're Tongan. And she's like, how are we Tongan? So I don't know if you know the Mea Tongas, PJ Mea Tonga them.
Yeah.
So his oldest sister, PJ's oldest sister, Keo, Auntie Keo, she did some genealogy and found out that our Mea Tonga side, which is my dad's grandfather and grandmother, Penina and Muelu Mea Tonga, my great-grandfather was actually Tongan. His last name was Laofo. He was Tongan.
That's cool.
But he was Hanai by a Samoan family, and he learned the Samoan language and everything, the customs and everything. And Tikeo, when she found out through genealogy, she went up to him and asked him, Papa, how come you didn't tell us you were Tongan? And he said, nobody asked. You know? And so it's just like, wow, really? Like you kind of left that out, you know? But man, amazing to be Tongan, Hawaiian, and Samoan. And I wish I would have known that when I wrote the song, you know? And interestingly enough, so I say in the song, I'm proud to be Hawaiian, only because I never really knew my Samoan side. When my grandparents or great-grandparents had migrated from Samoa, their philosophy was, we gave everything to get you here. You know, we're in America now. You learn an American education, learn American language, American culture, you know, because that is what's going to get you far here. You know, we sacrificed everything to bring you here. Now you study here and learn here. You know, your Samoan heritage and everything that there's no point in learning that now. You know, we're in America, you learn American, you know, and that's what's going to get you far. Not your Samoan heritage, but in a way, that's who we are. Mm-hmm. And so I yearned for that. But there was some truth to what they said as well. And so, you know, when I wrote the song as Hawaiian born, but then I put the Samoan born in there, you know. And my producer at the time, he's Haulian, so he didn't understand why I put that in there, because he goes, man, you know, I think I'm gonna leave out the Samoan born, because if I was Filipino raised in Hawaii, I can relate to being Hawaiian born, you know. If I was Chinese, or if I was Tongan, if I was another race, you know, being raised in Hawaii, I can relate to being Hawaiian born, you know.
Right.
But when you say Samoan born, I can't, you know, that kind of excludes me. And I told him, Bob, with all due respect, that song isn't about anyone else but me. I'm introducing myself to the world, and this is who I am. And the Thompson and the Lua, you know, Ainga and Ohana raised me. And so how am I going to claim to just be one? And, you know, how do I explain that to my Samoan side? You know, because when I come across the Samoan side, they're going to be like, what? Just Hawaiian, you know? How do you explain that? You know what I mean? That's a hot seat to be in. Yeah. So I was like, you know what, Bob? And, you know, a lot of people don't realize, like, in the music business, there's a lot of standards that you have to uphold. There's a lot of things that you don't call all the shots. There's a lot of people there that make decisions as well as you. You know, and so I told him, you know, Bob, if you're going to take that song, if you're going to take the Samoan born out of that song, then take the whole song off the album, because I will not be made to choose, you know, which side which side of me I'm going to represent, you know. It's either both or nothing. And so he's like, okay, we'll leave it, you know. But he's like, oh, it's not going to be popular, you know. And sure enough, it was, you know.
Exactly.
It did well. So I was just like,
wow, that's some great insight into, you know, that part of the song.
Yeah.
I guess continuing, we used to go to my grandma's house where she would bake banana bread that would melt in your mouth.
Yeah. So
Talk about that.
My grandma was an amazing baker. Anything banana bread, especially, like, she was an amazing baker. Her custard pies, her apple pies, banana pies. She would make bread, and as a little boy, I would know when that loaf came out of the oven, you know.
You can smell it,
and because I was the oldest grandson on my mom's side, on my maternal grandparents' side, she would always, and I was raised there, you know, she would always cut the top of the loaf for me and butter it. And she knew, you know, I was coming, and that would just melt in your mouth. And those were just, when I wrote the song, it was to take me back as well as give everyone a little bit of insight to how I grew up, you know. My grandma would cook banana bread that would melt in your mouth. And my grandfather, who was an amazing fisherman, he set the record for, I think, was 601 mullet in one throw. He caught 600 fish. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Dang.
And he would patch his nets, you know, the holes in his net. He would be outside patching them, you know, and I would come out with my little piece of bread and the butter, you know. And yeah.
Good memories then, huh?
Amazing memories right there.
Oh, geez. And it continues, and my papa would be outside catching all the coconuts.
No, he used to patch all his puka nets.
Oh, puka.
Yeah. Yeah, he used to patch his nets.
Dang. With the box on the side?
Yeah, the screen box.
The screen box?
They would like dry fish.
Okay.
And to keep it away from all the flies, they would put it in the screen box. Yeah.
Nice.
So it could dry like that without the flies getting to it.
Oh, geez. That's cool. Grateful to play in the sun. Grateful to play in the waves in the place you call Hawaii.
Yes.
Man.
Just being proud to be able to grow up there. And I always tell everybody that there is Hawaii and there is Laie, and that's two different places.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's Hawaii and there's Laie, and there's no other place in this world like Laie, where, you know, so many of us come from such a small little origin, but yet we've made it into the NFL, we've made it into the movies, we've made it everywhere, you know, and recognition just everywhere from this little town, you know, and we still to this day, you know, we're just making marks.
One thing that and because I started this podcast, one thing that I wanted to highlight was that we are more than just athletes, you know?
Yeah.
There's other things that we've contributed in, like yourself in music.
Yes.
Like you said, movies, you know.
Yeah.
We're also in education. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of things that we, you know, just from that little place.
Yeah.
You know, we've contributed, you know, a lot and offered the world. And so I think that's so cool and amazing that we're able to do that, you know.
It is. And again, you know, which brings me back to all of the different Polynesians that have come through Laie. That now, like ancestors, generations that have passed, you know, stand there thinking, you know, remember when we sacrificed everything to bring our family here? Yeah. And look at us now. Look at our families now, you know, just tears of joy, which is an amazing feeling.
Right. I guess for you, what are your favorite traditions growing up, you know, in the village, and how has that changed over time?
Favorite traditions? Man, traditions were different when we were young, which, you know, I could appreciate, like, when I was in high school, like, President Cravens, we had, like he had like a bunch of roller skates that they would rent out of the back of their van.
Interesting.
And they would go to the church parking lot, and like on the weekends, Friday nights, especially, like the whole community would come over there and rent skates and skate around the church parking lot. And like we would have an amazing time, the turkey bowl, Christmas bowl, you know. Especially in Laie Cemetery, Memorial Day. big time, big time for everybody that time, like you could see everybody at the graveyard, that I used to go. My dad used to clean his grandparents' graves the weekend of Memorial Day, and just that. And my dad would make umu for everyone. He
oh wow,
he made umu for everybody.
Because there's still the pits at your house, yeah. Everybody,
If you look at Google Earth, it looks like a meteor fell in his yard, which is crazy, And I used to tell, like in the song, my dad would teach me to cook in the imu.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I remember when I was like 13, I had killed my first pig when I was like 7, just before I got baptized. And we used to cook in the ground, and a lot of my friends in Laia Third Ward used to call me Emu Boy because every time they would come over and ask me to play, I'd be like, I gotta help my dad work, So they were like, what you gotta do, Emu, JD, Damuni, Avaleota, Tahina Mo'o, all these guys. And I gotta help my dad. And so, our house was known as the Umu house, And I used to tell my dad, like, Dad, like, why are we cooking our food here? Like all my friends, like they have ovens, And then, because you say something like that, like they give you the look like I'm about to take off my slipper and throw it at you.
Right.
But I used to tell my dad, like, why? We have an oven. Like we have an oven and a microwave. Like, why are we cooking in the ground? It's so much work, blah, blah, And my dad used to look at me and give me that look like, hey, just keep working, Don't make me talk twice.
Right.
And it wasn't until I had a family of my own, T-Man and all of them, they were like 8, 9 years old. And I had moved away from home. And I think Hurricane Iniki came through and knocked out all the power for Thanksgiving that year. And I had no choice but to go out in my backyard. And I promised myself, like, man, when I leave this house, I'm never going back, right? I'm never going to dig that emu again. I'm never going to see that again.
Yeah.
But here I had a little family of my own, no power, no way to cook a Thanksgiving dinner. And so I had my boys, let's go out in the backyard, dug the hole. We went down to the river, grabbed the rocks, cut banana trees down, brought them back to the house. And I had made my own umu in my house. And when I was done, I had taken food back to my parents, because I knew their power was out too. And so I had taken food back to my parents and I gave my dad, a bunch of food. And my dad looked at me and he's like, what is this? And I said, oh, it's food that I made from my house, And my dad started to tear, tears running down his face. And he looked at me and he said, you remember when you asked me, why we do this, And he said, now I know, now I know my son can survive without me. You'll be okay.
Right.
But this is the reason why I taught you, So I know, I can leave this place knowing my son and his family will be okay because he understands why I taught what I taught,
Dang.
Which was an amazing, because at the time you don't think, man, there's a lesson to it, You just think, man, I'd rather be with my friends playing, But I'm glad he showed me, and he showed all of us, I sense Kelly Wiley, all of us, we all grew up in the same ward, Lance Logan, all these guys, yeah, amazing lessons.
Man, especially that lesson, taught to you by your dad, and then you could pass it on to your boys.
Yeah.
I think that was, 3 generations,
Yeah.
of just father and son all helping out and, contributing and also, giving
and
back.
T-Man does it now. He does it at his home.
Yeah.
Which is amazing too.
Yeah, I remember, I think a couple years, I forgot how far back it was, but there was a Thanksgiving when they opened it to the community.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, if you guys want, your turkey or if you want something
cooked,
the Thompsons are opening up their pit, come drop it off and then you pick it up the next day or whatever it was. I was like,
there was, I think the last time there was like 334 turkeys they had cooked.
Yeah.
The last time they did it. Like crazy, yeah?
Yeah.
And that was my dad, so their scout troop for their ward used to do that fundraiser for the scouts.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used to charge $20 or $15, but everybody would just give $20. And they would be like, bring your turkey, season how you want, drop it off with your name. They give you a piece of tape, you can tape it and pick it up the next day. And man, 334. Crazy.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, man, that scout troop did good.
Enough to feed the village,
Yeah.
And well, I guess that covers the rest of the whole, the lyrics for that song, which is talking about your, doing the emu, and then, at your Papo Muelo's house. You even mentioned him too.
Well, so like Papo Muelo, so my dad used to go over there. He used to take me all the time too. He used to go over there, and my dad used to sit in the fale in the back of the house and just talk. They'd converse for hours upon hours upon hours, in Samoan. And I never understood it, right? So I would be sitting there like, oh, Dad, like, come on,
Yeah.
And so my cousin Jolene's brother, Keenan, and I, we would like climb on the ulu tree, like in through the window, jump on the fine mats, run across, And he used to say, hey, okay, ulu vale, ulu fafo, get out, And, that was memories that I had of my great-grandfather, which was so awesome that I was able to meet him too. There's a lot of wisdom there. And my mom, she taught me how to love everybody, regardless of your skin color, regardless of where you come from, your status, whatever, My grandmother, she always used to say, like people walking down the street, she'd say, hey, and I used to be like, who is that? She's like, I don't know, and she's like, hey, you hungry? Come eat, And so I asked my grandmother, like, how come you ask everybody if they're hungry? And she said, everybody has a path in life, but when you're hungry, you cannot think of anything but food, but you're hungry, Mm-hmm. So I bring them into my house, feed them, and they can find their way, And I think, wow, just the logic behind that, like, so true. When you're hungry, you're hungry. You cannot think of anything else,
Right.
But after you're fed, you can find your way. And she taught me how to love, and it's a amazing coincidence with this past conference,
Right.
where our prophet talked about, not seeing colors or being racial, we're one people, one race, human race, which I think that too is amazing, and it's instilled in all of us as kids, mm-hmm. And something that is instilled in us as kids, like, it's second nature to us. The world has to learn it,
Exactly.
And I think even in one of the songs, I think I wrote, like, Polynesian people, like, we will show the world what it means to love. We will show the world. Polynesians will be the teachers of the world of how to love one another. Yeah. How to love unequivocally, like with no bounds. Like, I love you regardless. Yeah. And like I said, like, it's taught to us like second nature. We don't even think about it, Right. But everybody else has to learn it.
One thing, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, just like you said, growing up, it just is what it is, like, it's just what we're taught and what we're doing, it is what we do daily. But then it's not until I move away from, so I went to college in New Mexico, and that's where I saw, like, whoa, these people are actually, you know what I mean? Like, so I played football in New Mexico, and just being on the football team, we were almost like the glue of the team, everybody was drawn to the Polynesians. So I went there with 4 other kids from Koku, 3 other kids from Koku, and then there were other Polynesians from, the other states and from American Samoa.
Nice.
And just us hanging out together, everybody else wanted to hang out with us, everybody wanted to be with us and wanted to say, hey, what you guys doing tonight? Like, oh, nothing, we're just cruising, and so it wasn't until I went off to college that I actually saw, that
what
we are, you know what I mean? We are those kind of people.
Look at Tua Tagovailoa. He took that to Alabama, I'm sure. They may have seen glimpses of it, but with him in the limelight, even Braden Fehoko, in Louisiana, and Billy, them going out there, and Billy's my classmate, and we're super close. I've seen those boys grow up, and just seeing them do the haka there before their games, I think, on the world stage, it's so different to see the way we are as a people, just unconditional.
I'm glad you mentioned
amazing.
that because, man, that is something that we have to offer the world. I usually ask people, what do we as Polynesians have to offer the world? And
Yeah.
you just said it brilliantly,
Yeah. We will show the world what it means to love. We will.
Yeah.
We will in the coming days or coming years. We will.
Yeah. Even in also in the lyrics, I also liked one of from that song you talked about we the bloodline, or we are the royal blood that runs in or something like that.
We hold the blood that flows into this earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
I mean, with just as Polynesians, we hold this thing we call mana,
Yeah.
And with the mana that we hold, you know what I mean? It just grounds us.
Yes.
And then because we know who we are, we know who our ancestors are, it allows us to like stand strong,
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's kind of like, because it's the blood that's running through us, the legacy that's been left, our grandparents and the sacrifices that they've, all our ancestors.
Absolutely.
For me to be here today, to be fulfilling their dreams,
Yes, absolutely. See,
exactly.
You get that too. You
and
get
so
that.
now it's on me to pass it on to the next generation,
Absolutely.
right? Or I feel like with every generation, everyone's made a sacrifice to continue
to get the
pass,
next,
to pass
next
us
generation
further
into
along,
evolution.
right?
Yeah.
And so with you and your sons, and now with your sons or your
Grandsons,
kids, to their kids,
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just gonna, and then along the way also just with the love you're talking about, we're gonna show the world.
Yeah. And then like even genealogy, a lot of us Polynesians we know where we came from. We know the generations back. We know their names. We've seen pictures of them in our homes.
Right.
And so we know. And, I feel like just knowing that of those people, we can continue their legacy.
Yep.
Into the future for our great grandchildren, and I want to be, I often think like, us as a people, we're not very materialistic at all. We're not materialistic people. We're very, very humble people. And we're like, wealth, like how do you gauge a man's wealth? How many kids, how big is his family? To us as Polynesians, the size of your family is your wealth, not how many cars you have, or stuff like that, and so it's like, I want to do something with my life, now, that will cause my great grandchildren to think, oh yeah, I have this because my great granddad, Norman Foley Jr., he made this decision or he did this, but I want them to remember, because if you think back, all of us as Polynesians, if you think back for a moment and think, man, like what did my great grandfather do? They migrated here and gave us this chance, So I want to be on the tongues of my kin, like, yeah, my grandfather, great grandfather, Norm, he was this great man to our family. So I want to be that one. I want to be the one to be that for our generations.
Right.
And hopefully my sons and their sons do the same.
Yeah. Man, that reminds me, I had the Fiti Semanus on, and that's basically what they talked, they shared is like, what stories are going to be told of me? What legacy am I going to leave? Because I've heard stories, or just like we talked about, we've heard stories of our great-grandparents or, people who've come before us. But, in the generations to come, what are they going to say? Oh, he was on Fwam. Or, oh, he was on Burger. But, or are they going to say, like, man, this guy was a pretty solid dude, he was a good guy. Or he actually, he did this for our community, or, So,
Well, what an amazing community we come from.
Right.
Village, like just the other night on Zoom, I was in a business meeting, and a lot of us from Laie were there, and they were like, so one of the people from LA asked, like, so how big is the town you're from? And we're like, man, I wouldn't even call it a town, maybe maybe a city. Oh, they said city, and then somebody said, maybe a town, and then somebody else said, oh man, not even a town, maybe a village,
village.
And yeah, man, Goose Store, Sam Store, Lair Park,
Yep.
like
That's where the legends are made.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All these people who
And
are
still,
known. Yeah.
yeah, and still, the children and grandchildren of ours,
Yeah.
are still like, yeah,
That's
legends.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
with the sacrifices that your parents have made, and your grandparents being, raised by your grandparents, and the person that you are today, or that you are, still becoming,
Yes.
would they be proud of the sacrifices they've made, and for the, with the person that you are today and you're becoming?
Yes. I'm sure. I'm sure they would be. I may not be, and I'm sure we're hard on ourselves.
Yep.
We're super hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critic when it comes to any type of achievement. But would my grandparents that raised me, would they be proud of me today? Absolutely. Will my great grandparents be proud of who I am and what I've done? Absolutely. Yeah. And hopefully my great grandchildren will be as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Man, I guess just going off of what you were talking about, like we're our own worst critics, we're hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I guess as Polynesian people, what are some things we have to unlearn maybe? What are some things that we need to might have to change? Because, like you said, we mentioned that our great grandparents or whoever it was, our parents or grandparents that moved here
Yeah.
for us to have a better life, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a fine line of like learning how to be Samoan and learning how to be American, right?
Yep.
You have to navigate that in this time and age.
Yes.
Not to get too Samoan or not to get too American because you don't want to lose who you are in your roots.
Right.
But you don't want to be too Samoan because you want to make it in this life, right? You want to be
Right.
successful.
Yes.
But then you got to learn, like also adapt to the American culture at some point,
Yes.
So, what are some things maybe we have to unlearn?
Some things we have to unlearn is our temper. I think, growing up, I was just talking to my cousin today. Growing up was always, quick to hit, ask questions, hit first, ask questions later,
Right.
Why did I get hit? Oh, it wasn't you. Look, that was for the one who got away,
Exactly.
And so I think we need to do better. There's a fine line between discipline and abuse, and I think Polynesians run all over that line, back and forth,
Oh,
up
yeah,
and
for
down.
sure.
But in the same token, I'm glad that I was raised that way, only because maybe if I hadn't, I would have totally been a different person with no boundaries to run. Just be a loose cannon and just go and do what you want. I think my parents taught me good morals, good values, but at the same time, man, I remember getting hit for everything, and with anything, the slipper,
Oh, yeah, for
anything
sure.
within arm's length, the cord from the wall, take the cord out the
The rocks for the moon.
yeah, but there was love in there too,
Yeah.
There was love in there too, and there was good intentions, and so there's a fine line. So I think we need to unlearn, or, maybe even learn new techniques, new ways, ways that I've learned myself, how to communicate better, how to make those changes, man, like, nowadays, timeout, in the corner, timeout. And I think to myself, man, how different of a person I would be if I had timeout. I wish I had timeout growing up,
Hey, I know what that
I
is.
wish my parents would be like, timeout right now, stand in that corner. Man, what I would give to not to be in the corner timeout.
Right.
But I think just that, as a people, we're whole people, we're loving people. Just that one, because I know discipline. And there's a lesson behind it, but that discipline, man, getting hit, generation after generation after generation, that is one thing that's taught in every book of generations, I think we can learn better. I
Right.
think we can do better. And I think a lot of the families that have migrated from the islands to here, not just Hawaii, which is still an island, but Hawaii is like in between, the main Polynesia and America. Hawaii's kind of in between
Yep,
still.
exactly.
And so the ones that did make it here, and those of us that did marry outside of Polynesia, I think they did learn. I think all of us learned a different way because now, we're learning. Your wife comes from not from Polynesia. Yeah, your wife is American. Your wife is Palangi. So, she'll look at you like, whoa, what are you doing? And like this is normal back home. It's not normal here. So now we've started to be able to like, okay, well, what's the options then?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us learn to do something different.
Yeah. I feel like being here in America, we learn to use our words more, yeah.
Yeah.
We learn to communicate
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
and we learn to express ourselves maybe even.
Yeah, and you know what? That could have been, maybe that's why our ancestors, came, was to learn that, to teach us that, that there is a better way. And I know, like, sometimes I wonder if my great-great-great-grandfather sat there thinking, man, telling my grandmother, like, I know there's a better way and I'm going to find it, and maybe moving there, is the beginning of that change. Yeah. And if it is, kudos to him, because you know what? It is. And through my wife's love, I love who I am today. I love the man that I am today. I've learned a lot from her. I've learned a lot from experience. I've learned a lot from other cultures. And like for a long time, I felt super lost. Like my identity was lost. I didn't know who I was, or I only found out a few years ago that American people, they go to therapists.
Yep.
You never find a Samoan or a Hawaiian in a therapist's office, right?
Yeah.
Learning different techniques and stuff, but it's open to us. So why did my great-grandfather or grandparents bring us here? Was it to learn something like that?
Exactly.
And if so, thank you, because I didn't know you could go and see a therapist and they could take you back to this trauma that happened in your life when your dad like beat you to almost,
to enjoy close to
and you can go back there and see the reason why and place it where it needs to be placed so that it doesn't affect you in your future life, going forward, But and all those things, like I never knew those things were available to us, like that. How's that going to help me? Like back in the islands, we just stuffed it. That happened. You took it. Okay, that's part of life. And then you marry someone that never came from that life, and they're like, oh no, there's like there's treatment for that.
There's roots for your behavior or roots. So of why things are.
Yeah, which I think is amazing. I think everything is a blessing.
Yeah, especially. So now with the social media the way it is now, there's a big push now for especially islanders, to seek therapists, and just there's that stigma right behind therapists is like, oh, you mahu, or like, hey, you know what I mean? Like we gotta, like you could just rub dirt over it, you get over it,
Yeah.
But that's from generations of doing that.
Yes.
And what's gonna end up happening is, there's going to be like a destruction, or like implosion or something, bad is going to happen. And so, that's a lot of a push now for our youth today is, if you need the help, seek the help.
Yeah.
And especially with, with depression, with
Exactly.
suicide,
Anxiety, yes.
There's a lot of these violence, domestic or even especially from us, verbal abuse from our growing up. But there's a lot of healing that still needs to be done.
Yes,
and a lot of this generational trauma needs to stop.
Yeah,
and it'll start with us.
Absolutely
seeking therapy, seeking therapists, and then just just like you said, that's why our grandparents, moved here, and thanks to them, because they want us to live our best lives, and living the best version of ourselves includes, therapy or whatever it needs to be.
Yes.
For this to happen.
And I sometimes wonder, I think back, like, if my grandfather ever thought like that, like maybe we should move there to give them a better chance, And man, today, when they see everything that's available to us, and not just available to us, but they see us partake of it, I think, man, right there, looking at grandma, right there, honey, that's why.
The sacrifice was all worth it.
Yeah. Just that, maybe worth it.
Man, that's cool. Well, also in preparing for, this podcast, I was going through social media, and I know you're on Instagram, and I can see that you just the way you speak of your wife, man. I think that's pretty cool. Especially learning how to expressing those thoughts and saying it in words. Because a lot of, I feel like my the older generation, or my dad's generation, not too well with the I love yous, or not too with like, oh son, it's okay, come, like just learning how all these things. And so it's kind of cool that you're able to do it, and I kind of like or that's a cool example for us to see.
Man, I owe a lot to my wife. I owe a lot to my sweetheart. She's I have I don't know if it was mental blocks from my past growing up or whatever it may be, but, to find someone that is supportive of music. So not too often you'll find someone that's supportive of a craft that means so much to you. And then when you have to leave home to go perform somewhere in another state or wherever it may be, and to keep that trust between you both when, anything happens, right? Like a girl may come up to you after a show and be like, oh, can I have a picture? And you're like, sure, and then they come up, and just before they take a picture, they kiss you, and then that goes on social media,
exactly.
And you can write 100,000 different endings to that, but will your wife believe you when you say, no, that wasn't me, And if she doesn't, why doesn't she believe you? And it's the trust that you build in your relationship. And like me, all of us polys, we have a temper, we have somewhat of a temper. And just, I think, learning about myself, you want to be heard. All of us men, we just want to be heard. We want to be understood. We don't want things taken out of context. I want you to hear me and understand me the way I'm trying to convey to you. And probably 99% of the time my wife doesn't, but she hears me. And so she lets me know, like I could probably come off super angry, but the way she talks to me is so loving. Like, how do you stay angry at that response?
Right.
It allows me, through her love for me, it allows me to think, okay, well, wait, now she heard me. That opens me up to hearing what she has to say. So she'll say, okay, babe, I understand you, but this is the way I see it, and this is how it affects me. And that allows me to be like, oh, man, like, okay, I screwed up there. Or, and I think to be able to be humble enough to say, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong. But through her love for me, I'm able to see myself and love myself the way she does. And it's like, it's almost as if I waited all my life to feel that, like when you tell somebody, man, I love you so much, what does that mean? Like, how can you gauge love, right? I love you this much or that much, or, I love you more, or I love you most, right? How do you gauge your love for someone else or their love for you? You can never gauge it. I think it's for a second or for a moment, you're able, through that person's love for you, you're able to then see yourself through their eyes and love yourself that way. And to me, that's an amazing gift when you can, because I mean, like my grandfather used to tell me, go in the bathroom and take off all your clothes and look at yourself in the mirror. If you can tell yourself, I love you, and truly mean it and believe it, then you're fine, you're good. But if you cannot, you have a lot of work to be done. You know, there's forgivenesses to be said. You know, there's I'm sorry's to be made. You know, there's a lot of work to be done. But if you can take off all your clothes and look at yourself in the mirror and, you know, say, I love you, you know, then you're okay. And I think my sweetheart, my wife, gives me that ability to love me through her eyes, because it's like, I don't know if you've ever experienced, but it's like, man, I wish one day I could see myself the way you see me, because like, you're beautiful. And she's like, oh, I don't see myself as beautiful, but I do, you know? And for just a moment in time, I wish you could see what I see through my eyes, you know? And when you can give each other that gift, I think it's such an amazing gift, that I've always wanted to love myself for the good, the bad, the ugly, the failures, the triumphs, everything, you know. I've always wanted to love myself, but you have a hard time because for whatever reason. And when you meet someone that can give you that gift, you know, to see yourself and allow you to love yourself the way you are, it's amazing.
Jeez, dang, that's cool. Ooh, that's
Yeah,
deep, you know? Yeah, no. But shout out to the wifey. Yeah. Dom. That's cool.
Yeah.
Man. And then also, just speaking on this love, you know, man, I guess you said just recently you found it, you know, or like that I think it comes also too from finding yourself, right? In knowing who you are and your identity. Yeah. And then in that way you can love yourself.
Yeah.
Man.
Sorry,
go ahead.
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey. And, you know, like, shoot, I'm 55, you know, like 55, like it took me 55 years to find that, you know, but it, you know, most people would think, man, I'm running out of time, but man, I feel like, geez, you know, like if I was able to humble myself to find that, you know, imagine what else is out there for me to find, you know?
Exactly.
It'd be amazing.
And I guess for like the younger generation, you know, you at 55, what would you tell your younger self, or what advice would you give for the younger people trying to find themselves or find love or find, you know, just loving themselves and that process?
Man, don't sweat the small stuff, right? Life is made of big things, you know. Don't get those two mixed up. Don't sweat the small stuff. Number two, every chance that you can forgive someone, forgive. You know, forgiveness is a gift. And Christ, when he was on the cross, he gave us two of the most valuable lessons that we could ever learn. The first was forgiveness. And the second was love, right? And he told his dad, forgive these people, for they know not what they do. And he loved these people, that he asked his father to forgive them, you know? And so, like, the last two valuable lessons Christ taught us while he was on the cross was those two things. Like, you know, and I often think when we're sitting in that chair in the front of our Maker, you know, there's two things that we're going to want from him, right? Love and mercy, right? Love me, Father, for all the mistakes I made, and forgive me for everything I did, right? And he's going to ask you the same things. Like, did you give that to everybody there? Did you love everybody on earth? No matter what they did to you, said to you, you know, no matter what. And did you forgive them? Because that's the two things you want from me today. But did you or were you able to show that to everyone else? Because that's what you want from me. Is it, you know, it's not that simple, right? When we're here. So I would say, love everyone as much as you can. And I'm sure, you know, I know we come across, because even me in my life today, you know, I come across people like, you know, but that's just temporary, yeah? Love everybody that you can or that you will allow. Forgive everyone, because we're all human. We all make the same mistakes, all of us. but we have this little judge that's within us, yeah, that we judge others by.
Right.
When, shucks, we're hypocrites because we did the same thing, right? Don't sweat the small stuff. If you can dance, dance. Meaning, if you have an opportunity to do something, do it. Don't waste the chance that you've been given, because it was given to you by people that have worked hard to bring that opportunity to you.
Right.
So every opportunity that comes to you, grasp it, hold on to it, and take it for as far as you can. Always remember where you came from. The parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents you came from. Always remember them. And when you can, help someone. Help someone in need along the way. Yeah.
Man.
When you can.
Whew, that's pretty powerful. I initially came here to talk to you about music, but we're getting into talking about love, talking about, forgiveness. And at the end of the day, I just feel like no matter, who we are, what we are, we're all, children of our Heavenly Father. And we all just want, his, our Father's mercy. Absolutely. And his love. And so he just basically broke it down, for, I feel like I just, getting some good life advice. I'm sure everyone else is, who is tuning in, listening to this. But I also wanted to ask you about, I guess you had an accident a couple years back.
Yes, I did.
And talk about loss, or coming close to, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Very close to the edge, but also climbing your way back out of it. Yeah. And just talking about loss is not the end of everything, right? There's always something on the other side, or there's always victories.
Yeah.
And then enjoying the small victories, because I'm sure it took a while for therapy or, with the accident and all that. But I'm sure, those little victories, for who you are today, and you can appreciate those big victories. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Just talk about what happened and how that, came about, I guess.
I was in Alaska. I was an ice road driver in Alaska at the time. I had come off the ice to take a load south. I was hauling two 45-foot containers, and I was headed up a hill. It was 13% grade, which is pretty steep. So I headed up a hill, and I got to the top of the hill, and I took a drink of water, and I put the water bottle in the cup holder. And coming back down through the turns, that water bottle got out of that cup holder, and it started rolling on the floor. And so in my attempt to grab that water bottle, it got stuck under my pedals. Ooh. And so I was coming down off of that hill way, way, way too fast. And so I couldn't reach it because I had my seatbelt strapping me in. So I tried to reach it. I couldn't get the bottle. So I kicked it, and then that's when it wedged on the side of my gas pedal. And so I tried to smash it, because it was half full. Right. So I tried to smash it, which I thought, might, just break the bottle and give me back my pedals. Yep. But it wedged it even further. And now it was wedged to a point where I couldn't reach it at all, And so I was coming down this hill way too fast, and I had two options. One option was to go, so when you get to the bottom of the hill, you come up onto a bridge, and you have to make a right turn. And it was either make that right turn or go off. And it was like a 200-foot drop if you go off, or come around that turn and, make the turn. And so I was going way too fast to make that turn, and I had to get that water bottle out of there so that the acceleration would slow. Yeah. And so I had to take my seatbelt off for that. And so I did, but that only left me enough time to take the truck around the turn. And so when I pulled that bottle out, I had enough time to take the turn, but I had to turn it so sharp to where almost to lay the truck on its side. And when I did, it was on a 40-foot embankment. So it rolled down 40 feet down into some trees. And so when I took that turn, I remember going off the road, and I thought to myself, I hope I did everything right, you know. And when all was said and done, I heard leaking in the truck, and I thought, man, I got to get out of the truck. So I tried to stand and open because the truck was on its side, kind of on its side on the roof. I tried to stand and open the door. Each time I tried to push on the door, my leg would give out, and so I fell on the ground. And you know, like adrenaline, there was a sense of urgency, you know, because I didn't want to burn in the truck. And so I was trying to get out, trying to push the door, and I tried 3 times. All 3 times I fell. And so there was a piece of glass that was blocking me from exiting the truck. So I smashed that glass with my hand. I smashed that piece with my hand. I tore my hand up, got cut pretty bad, and I crawled away. And I remember crawling into this little grassy area on the side of the river. Luckily, I didn't go into the river. I remember crawling into that. It was 4:30 in the morning. It was 12 degrees, freezing rain, and it was a holiday, so nobody was on the road. And I couldn't even remember passing a car. And I thought, okay, nobody's going to find me, you know? And so I crawled over there, and I laid in the grass, and I remember looking up into the sky, and I was telling my Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for my beautiful life. Thank you for my children. Thank you for my grandchildren. Thank you for my parents and the lessons they taught me. Thank you for all of my advisors growing up, people that gave me wisdom along the way. Thank you for all the people that you placed in my way, you know, because I knew I probably had maybe an hour and a half left to live with my injuries that I sustained.
Right.
And I remember closing my eyes, and I heard this voice. And this voice was like, "Are you the only one in the truck?" And I kind of opened my eyes, looking around, thinking, you know, maybe that was God. And he said, "Are you the only one in the truck?" And I was like, yeah, I'm the only one. And he's like, "I don't have cell service, but I'll go up the road and call for help, and then I'll come back." And so this kid, Cody Brown, was on his way to work, slick roads. And he came back and he sat next to me and he told me, 18 minutes, life flight will be here. You give me 18 minutes. Wow. And I told him, okay, you know, and he sat there, he talked to me, kept me alert. And then we heard the ambulance, you know, the firefighters pull up. They had chainsaws and started cutting down trees because they couldn't get to me where I was. I heard them cutting down trees and stuff. And they finally got to me and they were like, "Hey, we're putting you on the backboard." And I was telling this kid, like, "Thank you so much," you know. And they put me on the backboard. And I remember kept telling the firefighter, like, "Hey, dude, you put me on a branch. I'm laying on a piece of branch." And he's like, No, we put you flat on the board." And I was like, "No, you put me on a branch and it's super uncomfortable, you know." And then he radioed back, you know, and said, "Hey, possible spinal fracture." I didn't realize it was my spine that was all jacked up.
So you felt like it was on a branch?
Yeah, like I was laying on a branch.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was my spine that was pretty jacked up. And they got me to life flight. I got into Anchorage Providence Medical Center. And I was in such bad condition. They had to put me in a room that was like 28 degrees. It was cold because my body had swelled so much. So I was in that room for a few days before they could even operate. Come to find out, I broke C2 through C7, so 5 vertebrae in my neck, 3 vertebrae in my low back. I crushed my right hip in 28 pieces, punctured my left lung, and broke 7 ribs.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was in bad shape. And,
it's a bad day.
2 surgeries. One surgery was 17 hours. Second surgery was 13 hours.
Oh.
And doctor said if I made it, there's a good chance that I wasn't gonna walk again. And so when I came out of there, my kids were there. My dad was there, and my parents. I have so much love for my parents because. At the time of my accident, my sister was losing her battle with cancer here in Utah. So my sister Kainoa Taula, she was losing her second battle with cancer. And then I got into my accident. So everybody, like, she was losing fast. And so everybody was at her house, and, you know, we were just waiting for her to cross through the veil. And then boom, they got word that I got in this horrific accident. It was deemed catastrophic, you know. And so my parents were here because my sister was dying.
Right.
And then they got word that I had been in an accident and I might not make it. So my mom stayed here in Utah with my sister. My dad flew to Alaska to see how I was doing. And long story short, I wasn't able to make it to her funeral because I was still in a wheelchair. I had gone through some horrific challenges. But my son, my oldest son, T-Man, came to Alaska, got me to, he arranged with the insurance companies to allow me to go home to Hawaii, near my family, near the ocean, to heal.
Yep.
And they agreed. I met this awesome guy. He helped me with my rehabilitation, and he explained, like, in order for the injuries to heal, the whole body has to be conditioned. So he had me doing like Pilates, like yoga, like weightlifting, cardio, like walking up and down steps. And I remember the first day I got there, like, I could barely walk like 3 or 4 steps and I was done. And like 8 months later, I was like sprinting up and down steps, like 20 steps, just sprinting, you know, 3 times, you know. And man, what an amazing journey. It took me 9 months to get back to normal, you know. And then even that, but through that, I had to battle depression. I battled opioids, you know, a lot of these things, which, man, I don't even know how I came out of that, but I did through the love of my Heavenly Father, my kids, my parents, you know, and the community.
Yeah.
I was able. It took me 9 months, but man, that was hard work. And still today, to this day, I still, you know, I'm in pain every day. So now I have 2 6-inch screws in my sacrum, and they anchored a chain back there, and they pulled the chain to the front, and they screwed all the pieces to the hip to the chain. I have 4 rods, 8 pins in my neck, 3 rods, 6 pins in my low back. And so, yeah, I got a bunch of metal.
Setting the alarms off at the airport.
But yeah,
Man.
I got a bunch of metal. And it was an amazing journey. But my outlook at the end of that, it was such a humbling experience. And, you know, when you go through something like that, the village, the love of the village, the love of your family, you know, makes it all worth it.
Yeah. And that's what I think of, you know, especially your parents, you know, your mom stayed here and then your dad, like, man, how much sacrifice they do, you know, even, you know, at their older age, you know, because when they're younger, you know, but for them to be at the age that they were, you know, to come out and see you and stuff, I'm sure that was a, you know, a humbling experience. But man, I know you mentioned battling depression and opioids, and man, can you talk about, or just share with us a little bit about, you know, just the recovery from that, and just, I guess, who helped you, or how did you overcome that?
You know, like a lot that we learned as kids in Polynesia, we just deal with it ourselves, whether we block it or we stuff it or we find some place in our psyche to hide it. A lot of it, we deal with it that way because we don't know what's available to us as far as therapies. So we just kind of like sweep it under the rug. And like I had a lot of friends that battled depression. And I used to think, oh, man, come on, that's not even a real disease, you know? Until I went through it, because I was able to do all of this, and now I can't even go to the bathroom on my own. You know what I mean? And so like to have to depend on, you know, going from having everyone depending on you for everything, now going to you depending on everyone for everything. It was a super humbling experience. And, you know, you do, because you're not the person who you used to be, being able to provide or do for everyone. Yeah. So now you feel like, what is my self-worth? Why am I even here? Why didn't you just let me die?
Yeah.
You know? And so I think because I was in a wheelchair, I was in a walker, you know, and then I learned how to walk. It was a long process, a slow process, but it was a process. You know, at least I was doing something every day to get myself there.
Right.
I remember being in my room days on end because I had infection in my back, in the wound that was on my back. Days on end, I had a PICC line in my arm. I had to flush with solution, and then I had to give myself medication. And it's a line that goes through your body right to the artery to your heart so that it disperses through your body. And just day in and day out, having to do that, just staring at the four walls of your room, not being able to go anywhere, not being able to do anything, just basically existing, you know. You go through those thoughts in your head, like, why am I even here then? You know, like I had many conversations with my Heavenly Father, like, why? You know, why did you let me survive that? You know, only to what? Just to be a vegetable, you know? And I had these serious talks with my Heavenly Father. And each one ended with the same answer, you know, in time, you know, in time. And so to continue, I don't know if you've ever experienced opioid withdrawals, but I never knew, like I see on TV, you know, people withdraw from heroin addiction and whatnot, and it is not fun. It's not fun at all. Mm-hmm. You know, you go through flu-like symptoms, runny nose, restless leg syndrome, you can't sleep. You know, your body heat, it cannot be regulated. You go from cold sweats to super hot, back to cold sweats. You get irritable, grouchy, you know, just you feel like you're sick, but you're really, you're not, you know. And then I could relate to people on heroin because heroin is the same thing, you know, it's opioids. And so, you know, you start attacking the people that are closest to you,
right?
You know. And so it was a battle. I understand it, you know. I understand it now. I have a better understanding of it now. Even with depression, even if when a child comes to you and says, you know, I want to end my life, like, how do you relate to that? You know, what do you say to that, first of all?
Right.
You know, there's no manual that comes with that, you know.
Exactly.
Like if a child just says, you know, Dad, I want to end my life today, you know, because I feel worthless. Like, and I know a lot of Polynesian parents deal with that, let alone parents, period, you know, deal with that today. How do you deal with that, you know? I would say to not make it about yourself. Like a lot of parents would automatically be, well, when I was this or when I did that,
right.
You know, or don't do this, you know, to just be an ear, to be available, just to listen. I've learned from my wife to, like, you really don't have to, like a lot of men, a lot of us, like we feel like we have to find a solution. Yeah. I'll give you that
solution
answer.
Based.
Yeah. You know, when really, you really don't have to.
Right.
That's just them saying, you know, I need somebody to hear me, you know? So I think just to hear, just to be non-biased and to hear them, to hear your family members or friends or whatever it may be, just hear what they're talking about, hear what they need, and to reassure them and letting them know, like, Craig, I love you. And the world is 10 times better with you here.
With you,
Yeah, than not, you know?
Right. Man. Yeah. I know you mentioned earlier that you had a lot of conversations with God.
Yeah.
So at this point, you know, being a couple years removed from it, what do you feel like your relationship with God is at this point? And do you feel like you found your purpose? And are you living that purpose?
You know what? It's amazing that you've asked that question because I just started living that purpose.
Yeah.
I realized why my Heavenly Father saved me from that accident. Mm-hmm. It's to be an example to not just my people, but to be an example to the world of what you can achieve from coming from humble beginnings.
Yeah.
First of all, the first gift my Heavenly Father gave me was each one of my children, and the love from the love of my children. You know, a child's love is unconditional. Yeah, kids, they don't know motives or,
Yeah.
you know, they just know love, you know, and when they feel it, they give it. And the second was my sweetheart, my wife. Meeting her, being sealed in the temple just a couple of months ago, really enhanced my life into an amazing existence. And now, like my wife, when I met my wife, she's like, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? You know, and what's your goals in life? And I'll help you reach it, right? I'll help you attain it." And like, what partner does that, right? They want to help you achieve your dreams.
Right.
And so I told my wife, like, my dream is becoming a philanthropist, right? I want to be a philanthropist. I want to travel the world. And it's crazy because in my patriarchal blessing, it says you'll travel to many parts of the universe helping people, right? And I want to travel the world and I want to make a difference on behalf of my people, behalf of my family, and behalf of humanity. I want to travel the world and bring people options. So money doesn't buy you happiness, it buys you options, right? To live in a big house, a small house, option to go to Ivy League school or community college, right? Yeah. A nice car or just a hoopty, right? Money buys you options, that's all it buys you. But if you use it in the right way, maybe to build a library for people that want to further their education, or to build a fresh water well, you know, for people that don't have fresh running water, or to build, you know, a single mother a home, you know, or a dream, you know, to house her children, or an orphanage, or whatever it may be, you know. I just started doing that with this company that I just jumped on board with, an amazing company with amazing opportunities to be able to make that dream come true.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. You know, especially for our people, it's easy for us to give back, or it's easy for us to love, you know, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And so for you talking about like traveling the world and giving back, being a philanthropist,
yes,
that fits right in with what we do. And you talk about, you know, benefiting our people as well.
Yeah.
So, man, you know, all the best, you know, wish you all the best in that. And man, it's just a blessing that you're still here with us.
Yeah.
And I also feel that with this podcast and in sharing your story, I'm sure it'll inspire someone else. I'm sure it'll, you know, help other people who are maybe going through opioid addiction or withdrawals, or even, you know, anxiety or depression, or maybe someone who's gone through, you know, a horrific accident like you have.
Yeah.
And so I feel like just you sharing your story is powerful.
Yeah.
And it'll, you know, I'm sure.
Don't give up. Whatever you do, like, don't give up. You know, there's so much that you have to offer someone, whether it be a story or an experience of some sort, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, like, don't give up and give everything. When you give, give everything. I wanted to share this with you. Like, so in Hawaii, we have this bird, the Ewa bird.
Yep.
You know the Ewa bird.
Yep.
So those birds are amazing because I think our ancestors wanted the same. So the Ewa bird, when they travel long distances to bring back food for the young. Mm-hmm. But when they bring back food, it's the best, right? It's nothing but the best for their young. And so I believe our ancestors wanted us not to just stay in the islands, but they wanted us to travel, spread your wings and fly, go out into the world, you know, no matter where it be, go out there. But when you come back, and each time you come back to the islands, bring back the best with you, whether it be the best of experiences, the best advice, the best education, you know, or whether it be simply bringing back the best of you, the best person that you can be at the moment.
Right.
Bring back that best to us, and then come back, go back out again, you know, get new experiences, education, whatnot. But when you come back again, bring back the best.
Right.
you know?
And I feel like that's where the strength of the village come from, right? Is a child.
Yes.
And then the strength of the child is the village as a collective, you know,
Yeah.
as a group of people with experiences.
Yeah.
Man, that's
Absolutely.
powerful. Dang. Well, man, again, in preparing for this, I was expecting to go, you know, into like the music route, but we never even touched on. Well, we basically in the beginning, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just amazing that, you know, with what we've covered and what we've discussed,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what needed to be shared tonight. And
Yeah.
just with everybody that's going to be listening, you
And
know.
they're super, you know, like Polynesians are super musical at a young age.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's so much talent. There's so much musical talent in Polynesia. And if there's any advice I can give to kids that have a dream of making it in the music industry or music business,
Right.
never sell yourself short. You know, believe in what you have is $1 million product, right? And so because we're so humble as a people, we're super shy,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, there's one thing, like, everybody may have the talent to sing, but there's one thing that you cannot teach, and that's like charisma almost. So when you get on stage, you have to almost like think, you know, I'm it, you know. I'm the ish, you know.
Exactly.
You have to take on that persona. You know, like Beyonce has it. She calls it Sasha Fierce.
Yeah.
You know, Mariah Carey has it. She calls it Mimi. You know, they create these people because when they go on stage, they have to create this persona so that they come out. You know, I mean, like if you've ever seen Beyonce's, you know, live show, like she'll entertain you, right? And so any of the Polynesian children that want to get into entertainment, like especially music, like get on that stage and don't wonder if you have the caliber to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Make me believe that you belong there, right? Get on that stage and give it everything you got, like you've been on that stage 1,000,000 times. Like that stage was built for you.
Own it.
And own it. You know, make me believe that you are meant to be there and you will be there. You know, because they say if you can see it here, you can have it here, right? You can have it if you believe it. And if there's one thing that I can leave to anyone that has a dream of achieving anything, belief is the ingredient that materializes your dreams. So you can dream a dream, right? But it's just a dream until you believe it.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Belief is the ingredient that materializes your dreams.
Hey, man.
Believe in it and it'll come true.
Cool, brother. Well,
but thank you.
Again, thank you. You know, this has been as uplifting and inspiring for me, you know, motivating as well to just be better and do better, you know, because one day we got to go back to the village, you know,
absolutely.
And then in the village, everybody going to put you in your place, but then you contribute to the village in that way, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I just have a few questions just to end. It's like rapid fire questions. So the first thing that comes to mind, just to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
What takes up too much of your time?
What takes up too much of my time? Nothing really.
Just whatever you want it to be. Huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Social media.
Social media. Okay.
Social media takes up too much of my time. Yeah.
What do you wish you knew more about?
Business.
What or who inspires you?
My wife.
What's your favorite book?
The Traveler's Gift.
What are some things you had to unlearn?
Violence.
If you could, what is special about the place you grew up?
The love of the people.
What have you only recently formed an opinion about?
Politics.
So crazy, huh? With everything going on now. How can you not? What's the luckiest thing that's happened to you?
Don Thompson.
What song will guarantee you to make you dance?
TikTok.
Not TikTok. Guaranteed to me.
Maybe any of those old church songs,
Yeah,
Electric Slide, or
well,
the.
well,
or what were you
actually,
thinking?
yeah. I was thinking Burn Rebel,
Oh,
Gap
okay.
Band. Yeah.
What have you? Oh, sorry. What are you looking forward to in the next 10 years?
Helping as many people of my people as I possibly can.
What could you give a 40-minute presentation on with no preparation?
Anything. How would I even explain that? How to and where to save and make money.
Nice.
Yeah.
What hobby would you get into if time and money weren't an issue?
Flying airplanes.
Nice. When people come to you for help, what do they usually need help with?
Singing. Music.
What is something you think everyone should do at least once in their life?
Skydive.
Which of your scars has the best story behind it?
The one on my back.
What helps you live in the moment?
My grandchildren.
And last question, if you could give back to your village, how or what would you do?
I would build a museum of all the people that came from that one little town with so much to give back. Pictures, stories, of everyone that came from the town. I think the world would be astounded to learn
Agreed.
who actually came from this town.
Right.
And everybody would just be in awe, like, whoa, he came, whoa,
Yeah.
he has ties, you know? Yeah, I would build just a museum honoring all the people from, Uncle Junior Ayu all the way back, and all the way forward, all the way down to, the kids and, Bradley and I and those guys, those kids that were kids, Hercule Latu, those guys, And
People would be
still-
amazed to know that the Shaka came
Yeah,
from Laie.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Hamana Khalili, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's something that the world, is just don't know.
Yeah, and
They
not
just throw that and don't know even where it come
like
from.
you said, not just athletes, people like that, like Hamana Khalili, Moki, all the people that came from the community that helped shape generations of kids that came out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully one day we'll get that,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that'll be an amazing gift,
That's a good
that we
question,
can offer
yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
Or that we can offer just our generation or the people from our village even.
Yeah.
Maybe some people in the village don't even know
Exactly,
who came
who
from.
came, yeah.
Especially the ones that have come before them.
Yeah, and then the pride the pride on the kids' faces when they realize, whoa, no way, and then to maybe even realize, like, yeah, you related through so and so and so and so and so and so.
Exactly.
That's the one thing. Like, moving here to Utah, I find out like all the people that lived in Laie once upon a time that are no longer there, and they're here.
Yeah. Last week we went out to Mona, and we visited with some friends over there. And then his dad was from Koku.
Yeah.
Well, he graduated Koku in 1978.
Wow.
And he was so happy to see us. He was just like so prideful,
Yeah.
But he's moved away ever since he graduated Koku. But
Yeah.
just that pride that
Yeah.
comes from
Graduated
graduating
for
Koku.
life,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, it's something to see too here in Utah. A lot of the people don't understand, why do you guys talk about classes, Like
Yeah.
I'm a class of 05,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
everybody bags on the other classes and be like, hey, 03 or you know what I mean? Or I'm sure
Yeah.
with you guys, the 80s, you
83,
talk
yeah.
about, I think JD is your, or 84.
Yeah, no, 84 is JD. 83,
Yeah, 83.
Lake, your uncle
Oh,
Lake,
okay, yeah.
He's my classmate.
So-
In fact, Lake and me were the only two seniors in beginning typing. We used to sit next to each other and crack up because we were the only two seniors in freshman typing class. But man,
That's
the memories.
Oh,
And then he married my cousin Panya.
yeah, Panya.
Yeah.
Dang, small world.
So, yeah,
and
man.
they're a musical family too.
Yep. Yeah.
Auntie Panya,
Yeah.
them, those guys all
Yeah.
sing. And
Beautiful
so,
voice, Cookie, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, their grandmother and my grandfather are siblings. Yeah, crazy how we're all
Well,
related. Yeah, you can
Next
look
time
back
we see
to the
Auntie
road
Panya
maps.
and Lake, we'll
Yeah.
go let them know, like, hey.
Yeah,
But I'm sure she'll, when she sees you're on the podcast, she'll be
Yeah.
like, hey.
yeah, yeah. So,
man.
yeah, but been an amazing time. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you for
I really
having
do
me.
appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of the people listening, especially the ones from the village, going to
Yeah.
reminisce, especially with what you're talking about, And so they'll know, oh, Thompson, that's where the emu, you know what I mean? The emu boy, I guess is what they call it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks again for all the memories. Thanks again for the talking,
You're
and
welcome.
It's
Thanks
been
for
a
having
pleasure.
me.
Yeah. Again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made Podcast. Tune in next time. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Remember, it's a power and a privilege to be Polynesian. And these are our stories. All right.